Welcome to the MaxBet podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything gaming. I'm Landon Jones, here with Mike McKiskey. Let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the MaxBet podcast.
Hey, buddy. Emphasis on the girls today. We're talking to the ladies about the ladies.
To the ladies, about the ladies, about the men.
About the men and the ladies and how it all plays together.
Yep.
It's Diversity and Inclusion Day.
It is Diversity and Inclusion Day.
But before we get into all that, it's also Pie Day.
Is it Pie Day?
March 14th, 3.14 apple pie. Do you have a favorite pie? Let's talk about something I care about.
No, what's your favorite pie? It's important to me to know this.
Man.
It's important to me to know what your favorite pie is.
I like most of the pies.
You like all the pies?
Pretty big pie guy. I would say, though, it's weird, right? Because most of the, when do you even eat pie? Thanksgiving? Like, I don't just, it's March. Like, I don't just randomly go out and eat pie.
Not a big pie guy?
Well, I love it. I just don't normally.
Just one day a year pie guy?
Not in my rhythm.
Well, did you get a pie on Pie Day?
Pie Day? Yeah, we're going to get, let's do a little coconut cream.
A coconut cream pie?
That's the way.
Okay, scratch pies. What's your favorite dessert?
All-time favorite dessert?
All-time favorite.
A good tiramisu will get to me every time. Second is baklava.
Okay.
You?
That was very, you were specific.
What was I supposed
I'm going to
say?
get specific too. So
Ice cream?
I like a bed of vanilla ice cream
Okay.
with warm churros on top.
Warm churros?
Yeah, and then you take the ice cream and the churro and you make a little sandwich in your spoon.
I have the best churro story you've ever heard in your life.
I can't wait
Ready
to
for
hear
this?
it.
Okay, so there's a bar here in Vegas that we would go to when we were in college. And so they would do during football, they had this thing, they bring it out. It's called the Wheel of Deals. Okay, so the team scores, spin the wheel, whatever comes up, $1 shots, $1 chicken wings, $1 churros, right?
Okay.
So there's like 5 of us, 6 of us, and we go, and we're just getting in the zone and having a couple drinks, whatever. And every time they spin the wheel, we're like, churros, right? So like the whole game, it's not hitting churros. It's hitting everything but churros. And finally at the end, the guy just goes, it's churros, right? He just puts it on churros and goes, congrats, you idiots, you've made it. So we go, we want 12 churros. There's 6 guys, not a big deal. You could eat 2 churros. I'm a grown man. I've been to Disneyland, right? So it's like, you go, so they look at us, and then the guy goes, first thing I knew I was in trouble, he goes, are you sure? I go, yeah, it's just a churro, bud. Like, just calm down over there. It's $1. I can afford it, right? And he just goes, okay. So he puts the order in, and then you can see, like in the kitchen where the chefs are, you can see them get the ticket and go, like they're like showing each other 12 churros. Right? So what it turns out in this particular restaurant, a churro is not just a stick of, dough and sugar. It's 6 giant, like biscuit-sized chunks of churro with a scoop of vanilla ice cream in the middle. That's one. We got 12 plates of that. And they drag it out in like a table the size of this podcast. They just put them all out. They go, have fun. Well, okay. So we knocked that out. We didn't eat it all, but like we were just having the whole bar. It was like, hey, get some churro, like hang out. So I can't eat that anymore because it's like a traumatic memory for me, but I can see why it's a great dessert for you.
If we haven't lost the entire audience.
People are with me. You don't think people love churros? They've survived this. This is one I'll fight for. We're talking desserts today, buddy. You're right up my alley.
No, that was a good churro story. So that's my favorite dessert. I don't want 12 of those.
No. I bet you probably didn't even eat one. Like it's a lot, dude. You start crushing that.
But here's my question. Why mess with the churro in a buttery, doughy bun?
I don't know. Just be a purist, right?
Keep churros. Okay?
Keep churros pure.
Yeah.
We're just keeping what we think. Just what we overpriced pay at the theme parks. That's what we want.
Tell me something else good.
Everything's good, man. We've been having a lot of fun, man. We had a lot of fun. We were at the Light and Wonder debut.
Tomorrow we're headed to Grayton.
Going to Grayton this week. That's going to be fun. First time for me in a private jet. That's not a bad way to live your life.
Yeah. We had to actually, you're counted as 2 people on the jet. And so we had to get rid of one person.
You're out. Big boy said. That's right.
But you're important. So we want you on the plane.
I mean, The Rock flies on the private jet. I can't imagine it's like it can hold you.
But The Rock just has him on the jet.
He doesn't
He's
have
like
his whole
all
team.
his friends who fly Delta, buddy.
Doesn't have 7 of the top influencers in the biz.
By the way, Rock, if you're listening, we still want to interview you.
Anytime you're ready, buddy. So who do we have today?
We have GGW in the house today.
GGW for the uninitiated, Global Gaming Women.
Correct.
So what's fun, we're fortunate. They're two high-powered executives in their own right. So we have Siobhan Lane, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at Light & Wonder, formerly Scientific Games, and Cassie Stratford, who's the Senior Vice President of Legal Operations and Compliance at Boyd Gaming.
Big title.
I don't know what that job does, but I know she's important, right? I don't know what that means, but it sounds like a big deal.
I'm kind of nervous.
Dude, for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is the thing. Like, it's not every day I'm aware of people that are smarter than me. I assume that they're smarter than me. Like, I just know that generally I'm never the smartest guy in the room, but it doesn't come to my mind.
Yeah.
Then you talk to me and go, oh, yeah, well, we're definitely, you and me are third and fourth place here in this room, right?
Welcome to my everyday.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, they're coming by to talk a little bit about Global Gaming Women and kind of some of the diversity and inclusion initiatives that they're working on within that organization, right? With GGW. And then also just different ways. I think, I'm interested to know, like, I know I'm screwing this up.
Yeah.
Right?
I was going to tell
unintentionally. Yeah. Have I excluded
That's
you,
why
sir?
we're having this.
That's it. This is an intervention. Yes, it's not an actual
thing. It's actually an intervention, not a podcast.
Well, look, somebody asked me once, because at AGS, the team that I was running was half guys, half girls. And then some of the people go, how do you manage all the girls? I go, it's easy, treat them like guys. Right? That was my 2 cents, because I'd call them by their last name. I'm like, hey. Yeah. And they're like, this is not, I don't know, man. I don't get it.
Just treat everyone the same.
Well, that was my thought, right? But like, I think what I suspect, and we can ask them, is there's probably more nuance would be better. Well, you have to, you can't just ignore the fact that they're female or diverse, people of color, whatever. Take that into account and then do better, right? Yeah. So I'm sure there'll be a lot to learn. This is one where I fully expect to come out going, oh, I learned a lot.
Can we get churros after?
We should go get churros after this. Yeah.
I'm like, woo.
We're nearby. What time is this?
I'm so hungry thinking about food, but we are excited for this podcast. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
On this one.
It's been fun. Well, because like Siobhan, for example, doesn't live in Vegas. And I think what we've learned of the pod is that it's better to do it here.
Right.
Like when you're with somebody, you can feel their energy and get a better experience for the listener than
we do it for the people.
Yeah, for the people.
We do it for you.
We
do it for you. Well, enough about us talking about desserts.
Let's bring it to the ladies.
Just a couple knuckleheads in a brick room.
About to go eat some churros.
All right. Let's get in the interview.
Let's do it. Well, ladies, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you coming by.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to lie. I was telling Landon this, and I think I mentioned this to you guys in the prep class. I'm a little nervous, right? Like it's sometimes
Don't be nervous.
Walking in, you go, I'm a little outclassed here. Like, it's, usually the big guy thing works, but I'm like, man, you're smarter than me. You're more accomplished than me. You're fighting for diversity. Like, this is going to be a pretty
Did you remember the titles?
Titles, yes, perfect. So, see, that's how nervous I am. I'm just dropping the ball left and right. It's always a fun intro. So, so we'll talk about it obviously in our intro, but with us today, so Cassie Stratford, president of Global Gaming Women, and then Siobhan Lane, also on the board of Global Gaming Women. So, two high-powered women fighting for change in the biz. So, we're happy to come by and hopefully learn a ton, because I can tell you this is an area that I need a big level up. Like, we always talk. Well, we always talk, and I think we were talking in the setup with ladies and saying, hey, look, like, we don't intend to be bias or the problem, I guess, right? But I think there's a lot of ways we just trip on ourselves, right? And so, but before we get into some of that, I'm interested. So like when we talk about diversity and inclusion, what is that? I mean, is it as broad as it sounds, or like how do you maybe bring that to life a little more in just a day-to-day? If I'm just sitting in my office going, yeah, diversity. Okay, how do we make that come to life?
Yeah, I think in the simplest form, it's just ensuring that there's representation and most importantly, participation from a diverse group of people, and making sure that, you're being intentional about moving DE&I forward in, in our industry, in our organizations, and in anything that we do. Yep. And I can assure you, you're doing good things too.
Yeah, perfect.
But I think we don't often call those out and identify those. And, men play a really, really important role in this journey of DE&I in our industry. And I think we need to call out all the great things that our male allies are doing too. So we can get into that later in the conversation. But you're doing a lot of great things too. And let's really amplify those.
Awesome. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think with guys, like I get this, especially like talking to the wife at home, I'm like, hey, I know I do a lot of good things. Like, I don't necessarily need a parade every time, but sometimes it's nice to go, hey, remember when you like let the lady speak first? That was good. It's like, okay, good. Like that, because we don't think about it, right? Until you get smacked in the face going, hey, don't compliment her fashion. Like, it makes her feel uncomfortable. It's like, okay, like I didn't mean it, but fine. Like, I know that's not like, but you learn. But the only reason you learn is somebody says, hey, like, fortunately not to me, but I've heard somebody say it. I go, okay, now I won't comment on it. Like, I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Yeah. But you normally learn, I think, as guys in the negative. Like, you learn, hey, you did it wrong. And then it's frustrating, right? So to your point, like highlighting some of the positives would be good. Be like, hey, don't be like this guy. Be like somebody else who's doing it right? Giving them a positive example.
Yeah, and there's obvious ways to be allies, right? Like supporting GGW. Yeah. We've got fantastic allies and supporters. But I think oftentimes it's like in the little things that really matter and impact people's days. And how can we call attention to just those little words or actions or behaviors that an ally does, maybe in a meeting or in an interaction, where they don't even know they're being an ally in that moment. But if we call it out and positively reinforce it, maybe they'll do more of it. And that's exactly right. We don't want to negatively reinforce. It's let's find the positives.
So if I'm listening right now, I'm a business owner, female or male, and I want to support GGW, how do I do that?
Well, there's a lot of ways you can support DEI initiatives in general. So I'll start there, and then I'll get to GGW. Yeah. So I think from a baseline perspective, it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing. You know, how can I be supportive where it's too much? I don't know enough. I'm just a guy. I'm not sure what to do. Yeah. I think the simplest way to think about it is just make sure it's front of mind all the time. Make sure that it's something you're constantly thinking about as you create your business plan or are creating a strategy session for the path forward, and make sure that that's always something you're thinking about. Are we making sure that we're attracting diverse candidates from a hiring perspective, and how can we do that better? How can we make them feel included? And think about it from your customers, whoever your customers are, whether they're other businesses or individuals, making sure that you're thinking about how can I outreach. And just, I think the baby step of making sure that that's front of mind all the time as you're thinking about all of those business things that have to drive what we do every day. I think that's the first step. And so hearing people, you know, I'm not sure what to do, and out there asking and looking for organizations like GGW is a huge step forward. And then when it comes to organizations like GGW, you can think about how can I support them, not just financially, which is obviously very important. And we will be happy to talk about that. But also, you know, if you think about, okay, look around your workforce and make sure they know that not only are these opportunities available, but that your team members or employees are supported in wanting to participate in those things and wanting to get involved and find those development opportunities. Because I think sometimes team members aren't sure if they're supported in seeking out those kinds of development opportunities. Sure. And knowing that your supervisor or boss or company leadership is very supportive of you participating in those things, I think makes people feel like, A, it's something the company genuinely cares about, doesn't just include an mission statement because it sounds pretty in the PR, people put it together. It makes it feel more authentic. And then I think people feel invested in a way that's unique to them, and not just, you know, we care about team members overall because it's good for business. We care about individuals. We care about people. We care about thinking about what makes a difference in our industry and our communities at large.
Interesting. Yeah. And you mentioned, I think, throughout that active participation, right? Yes. So from not only from the employer side and like the boss or whoever, but I think a lot of that falls on the individual, right? And so I guess part of allyship in my mind is like when somebody takes the leap, right? Because it's not easy. Like I remember when I was younger in my career, I was like, all right, we get the big meetings, the whole company or whatever. I'm like, how do I get a seat at the actual table? Because you know, there's 12 people at the table and 100 people around the table.
Around the room.
And it's like, all right, well, okay, I mean, it's easy to get around the room, but how do I get like progressively higher status in the seating? And I didn't have any fear, right? I was like, I'm gonna go sit down and see what they say. But I would imagine if you're a female and not a gigantic white guy, like it's probably a harder step to take, right? And so I think maybe part of it is just maybe recognizing when someone does take the step, go, okay, I'm gonna let her do her thing and see how that goes, or I mean, that's part of the deal, I think, too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this topic of allyship is so important. Like we mentioned earlier, we need allies on the journey with us, right? And in every sense. And we can't achieve this goal collectively if we don't have allies. So yes, I think allyship's important. And again, it can come down to just very little things. There's this notion of the only. So if you just look around the room, right, have a level of awareness around if you enter into a room and there is a table and you look around the table, likely in this industry, there might be an only there. And that means it's the only woman around the table. It's the only person of color around the table. And those are things that are the only is very aware of, but others around the table might not be aware of. And so just having this level of awareness and recognizing that that the person sitting around the table might be experiencing this very differently, right? Because majority groups tend to have, amount of privilege in our society, and it's different, and there's different levels of privilege for different minority groups. And so allyship is really about how do you use your position of privilege to actively support those that might not have that same privilege and might be part of a minority group. And so having awareness around it, but then very quickly doing something about it and taking action. And that can be as simple as, making space for that person in the meeting and just saying, we haven't heard from you. I'd love to hear your opinion. And not to put them on the spot, but just create that space in the conversation for them, because they're likely intimidated or feeling a little left out in one way or another.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we were chatting, and I used this stupid example. I said I took a women's studies class in college, right? And it was just had to do it. I was the only guy in the room. Yeah. And so no one should feel sorry for me, but it was just one of those where it was weird because all the girls would get, the teacher's a lady, all the students are ladies, and they're going, well, the ladies think, and then they go, Mike, what do the guys say? And I was like, whoa, I'm speaking for all men around all the world. It's a weird pressure, right? So, and I didn't have a problem because I'm 21. What do I care? It's not really going to leave the world. It's just a class, right? No big deal. But the other side of it is, to your point about not calling them out, part of you go, hey, now you're going to speak on behalf of all people of color today. I was like, dang, it puts people in a position where maybe there's a lot more pressure than they signed up for. How do you balance some of that?
I find this only thing real quick before we move on to this super fascinating, because we only feel what we feel, right? We have our own perceptions and ideas of what things are, but when you're the only person in the room, you have a completely different outlook than, say, anyone at the table. Yeah. And what I can relate that to, and we'll get kind of emotional about it in this podcast, is when I was in Australia and I got into an accident, smashed my face. I had surgery, but I was for a year, I was different looking, and I was completely, wired mouth, jaw, and how people treated me before and after that was very.
Oh, because you were physically disfigured, you mean?
Yeah,
so
they didn't give me enough, more the attention I used. I was still the same person. I still had the energy, still felt the same person.
Imagine though, bud,
but people oh, hey, yeah, here you go, take it. And they didn't think they were being mean to me. That's just how their reaction to my physical look. But that changes.
Your scar's healed. Imagine you're born that way, bud.
I know.
You have, your,
that's the
whatever
point. That
the
only
minority group is. Yeah, that's wild.
They don't think they're treating me differently, but I feel it. Yeah. Everybody does feel it. So being inclusive to everybody, even if it's not genuine, they feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, bias is real, and unconscious bias is real.
For sure.
And I mean, that's the unconscious bias, that again, we have to just educate ourselves. And it's usually done without intention, but there's these underlying biases that come out, and we just need to, again, be aware of that.
Right.
And we're not going to be able to correct everything, right? You're dealing with all these rules. What do I say? What do I not say?
Well, on here especially, but no, it's, it's interesting, but are there tips for that? I think, because to your point about awareness, you were saying, hey, it's good to create space. It's good to just be aware. It's good. The baby step, I think you said, was just put it in the front of your mind. But it feels like that means that we're relying on the Cassies and the Mikes and the Siobhans and the Lannons of the world to go, I'm going to be different today. But is there a way to systemize it? Have you found anything you go, here's how we're going to do this so that everybody does it?
Well, one of the things we chatted about before was when you're looking at just simple things like mentorship. Yeah. I think it's very natural. I don't think it's intentional, but people look around and they see someone kind of like them, and they see a little bit of their younger self in that person, and they want to help them and foster that and help that person grow. But what I challenge people to do is look around the room and find someone you connect with that has some different experience than yours.
Yeah.
Maybe it's someone very different from you from a diversity perspective.
Yep.
And think about how much more you can learn from one another with that. You know, you still have some commonalities. You still see something you admire in that person. You want to help them. But just having conversations with people, you know, you sharing your experience about how different it was when you were recovering from your accident.
Right.
Or you sharing your experience about being the only guy in the women's studies class. Or, you know, Siobhan and I can talk about stories about, you know, maybe being the only female in certain business meetings and what our experience was there, and hearing the guys say, oh, I didn't even notice you were the only girl there.
For sure.
You know?
I'm guilty of that, I guarantee. Because it's like, oh, Cassie's here, no big deal. And they go, oh, wait, you're the only girl.
Exactly. They don't realize it. And then when you have the conversation, you can share with them, well, it was fine. I had something to share. I appreciated when someone gave me a moment that I felt comfortable that now was the right time for me to share my perspective. And building those types of mentoring relationships where there's diversity between the mentee and mentor, I think is also hugely helpful.
Yeah.
Because you'll get insight into someone's perspective. And it doesn't have to be a formal situation. It doesn't have to be a formal mentor program. It can be just, hey, you notice somebody in a meeting that's maybe the only.
Sure.
Or one of the few, and reach out to them and have lunch afterwards or grab a coffee and say, how was your experience in that meeting? Was there something, you know, the rest of us could do to make you feel more comfortable? Or the reverse. You know, if you were the only in that room, reach out to somebody you trust and respect in that room and connect with them afterwards and have the conversation. I think those personal touches and personal anecdotes are so meaningful, and I think help create some new pathways of thinking about diversity that go beyond just some big programmatic change, but sort of, again, looking at baby steps when you're trying to think about what can people do that are little things that don't have to feel like I'm going to start a whole program about you know this. It's like no, you could just look around the room in a meeting and
just
say,
simple thing.
Hey, you want to have coffee afterwards, and that makes a difference. So, and I challenge people to think about that, because every single person listening to this podcast can do something small like that that will be hugely impactful. I mean, I bet every one of us could tell a really cool story about a little thing somebody did for us along the way that has made such a big difference that we'll never forget. And that other person may or may not know how impactful that was. And I think it's really important for people to sort of hold on to everybody can do something about this topic, and collectively it makes big change.
And I think on the flip side, like when somebody does do something positive, again, call it out and just say, like, I really appreciated you making space for me in that meeting. Like, that made a huge difference to me, because they're doing, you know, our allies are doing things and they might not even realize. And they're going to go, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that was a thing, or like that it made a difference.
Almost every time I've noticed, whether it's allyship or just other kind of mentorship, I feel like you never know the impact yet until 10 years later. Somebody goes, hey, you said a thing, or you pulled my chair, whatever the thing was. It really changed my perspective. And you go, wow, like if I had known 10 years sooner, I'd been doing a lot more of that. Like, I would've just but not to put you on this podcast, but as you were talking, you said, so everybody has their person that did a thing. Like, do you have a person that did a thing, like an ally for you that as you were fighting your way up the ladder that helped you out?
I mean, I can actually think of a lot of examples. One that just came to mind when we were talking about this particular scenario was there was a meeting years ago that I got included in. That was sort of a senior strategy type meeting on a specific topic. And I guess it was my boss at the time, who was our general counsel, who said, hey, I think you need to be in this meeting. And I was nervous, but excited and like, oh, don't say anything stupid.
Now, walking into that meeting, were you the only lady in the room?
I was. And I remember thinking like, okay, just, you know, pay attention, be yourself, you know, don't get overly nervous. And there was like 45 minutes was going by, and I was like, I had something to add. I had something to say, but I was trying to figure out the right moment.
Like double dutch, you're trying to time your comment.
Well, you know, like the Zoom thing where everybody's talking over each other. You don't want to do that. And this was pre-pandemic. But there was a point during that meeting where it was our CFO, who's still our current CFO, who said, Cassie, you look like you have something to say.
Perfect.
And I did, and that was my in. And that was that, you know, and I'm not a shy person. I'm pretty chatty and not afraid of talking to strangers and all the rest of it. But in that meeting, that was sort of, I remember it as sort of a pivotal, now I'm in this room, I gotta like really impress everybody. And him just, giving me the space to say something and recognizing that I must have been like, doing the, like,
where do I get
ready to say something,
The shoulder leaning there. Yeah.
That's an important note. And we're talking about being inclusive, right? And it's our job to be aware. But if you're listening and you feel like you haven't been included and you're not getting the opportunity, when someone does reach out and give you that opportunity, take full advantage of it. Because a lot of times people reach out and people don't take the hand.
That's right.
And then they still stay the victim and they still, I'm not getting the opportunity, but you didn't take the opportunity, and you got to take those opportunities when they're given out. So I want to
both ways,
push
right?
it to the other side. Yeah.
It's a great point. Yeah.
I guess I think just listening, especially to both of you, because I'm like, man, you got two high-powered executives, C-suite, changing the business. I'm going, it's weird for me to think there was a meeting you didn't want to jump in and talk at. Not a bad thing. I'm just like, it's just so interesting, right? Because again, like, talk about the perspective. I don't have it. Like, we're all in the room. Say what you want to say.
Yeah.
Have you noticed times, I guess, on your journey then, maybe if it's a female issue, maybe, but like where you've spoke up and people get, shut up, girl. Why are you talking to me? Like, is anybody smack you back for doing that? Or is it, because I think your answer, I don't know, what I would assume is you feel a lot of pressure not to speak because you're nervous. And you go, oh, these guys are going to shut me down. But chances are the guys are going to be like, Cassie, great point. Like, it'll end up being so that may be a scarier thing to speak up than the actual result would be. Like, you may be afraid of, hey, these guys are going to think I'm an idiot, or they're going to laugh me out of the room, or I'm not invited back. But in reality, they're like, hey, guys, thanks for speaking up. Like, have you noticed a lot of times where it's backfired, I guess, is what I'm asking?
No, I mean, I love that point too.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's good. Just something to remember in life in general. I mean, it's so rare that you regret a chance you took.
Right.
Or putting yourself out there or really trying something. It's the meetings you leave and it's like, dang it, I had this thing to say that I wish I would have said, right? Like, I had this perfect thing to say. Those are the ones that stick with me way more than I said something and maybe it was, what happens in those meetings as it should, right? Because you're in a room that's collaborative and discussion oriented is, there's been times when it's like, oh, that's a good point. Here's something else we need to think about that might impact that. But never have I said something and been like, dang it, you idiot.
Yeah.
Zip your mouth.
It's no different than I feel like anybody in that role would have been. Like, I think if you would have taken you out and put a young lawyer on the rise in, they probably would have been equally nervous.
Yeah.
And, you had the added element of pressure going, well, I'm the only here. But I feel like at the end of the day, you take the step and it's actually like, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Right?
To his point, you got to do it. You got to.
I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
And
well,
no one's going to
at.
shoot you down. And I coach women all the time, like in negotiations of pay and comp too.
Sure.
And so often women just don't ask. And almost every man just asks. Yeah. And I tell them, like, what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. And that's it. Like, no hard feelings. Yeah. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And so just, take the opportunity.
Well, I love that. And so it reminds me, I'll call us out a little bit here for
Please
this. Because
do.
when we were setting some of this up, the commentary from some of Siobhan's team was like, you guys are a little like bro heavy, a little male dominant, like you don't have as many ladies on as we'd like to see. Yeah, how could you? And I was like, dang, like that's not what we were going for. Like, we're guilty as charged when you put the evidence out there, but you're going. So then I started thinking, I go, why is that? And I said, you know why? I think it's not, believe me, it's part of it's our fault, right? I said, but the guys are shameless. We get guys that I've never even heard of emailing us every day going, hey, can I be on your show? I'd make a great guest. Here's why I would be a fantastic guest.
Self-promoting.
Meanwhile, you get other like high-powered execs with like, and I just pick on Jean Veneman for a second. Like, she's great. Everybody meets her, likes her. And I worked for her. I'm like, I know you're really smart. Like, come on. She's like, I don't know. You sure you want me? I'm like, yes, I'm really sure. She's like, okay, well, I know you. I'll do it. And I'm like, ladies, just do it, man. Like, people want to hear more about the women in this industry, I feel like, and just in general. But there's like this interesting hesitance, right?
It's so true. Like, women feel they have to check every single box
twice,
right before they move forward.
And are we putting that on you? Like, are the guys doing it in some way, or how does that just inherent?
That's our thing. That's our thing.
I think that's a thing that women
just lives in
need
that
to
second
do
X
better
chromosome.
at, and are working at sort of tackling that topic, because you read a lot about this, and I'm sure you have this experience too. And I can think of, if you look at a role and you think like, my natural reaction is, oh, I don't know that. I've never done that before. I've never done that before. And I've gotten better about being like, but why couldn't I? Because you're, at some point in your life, you've never done anything before,
Absolutely.
right? You got to learn it somehow. And there's a lot of studies that show women are more inclined to look at a job description or a role and say, oh, I don't check those 5 boxes. And guys are instead like, I checked 10 boxes, forget about the other 10.
50%.
Don't worry about those boxes.
And good
exactly.
on them. And that is
Yes.
not, I think what's important to remember when we make comments like that is that's not shame on men. That's good on you guys for having that confidence. And it's something we as women need to help each other do a little better.
Because I mean, just from a hiring perspective and that, I don't know that I've ever made a hire. I made a lot of great hires. I don't know if I've ever had anyone check every single box, guy or girl. And my last team was 50. Yeah, you especially. but like half and half. Like my last team was 50% guys, 50% girls, and they were all great. And I would bat for them any day. But it was like every single person on the team was learning something. Right, it was different, but no one had the job nailed 100%.
In one.
By the way,
area.
neither did I.
Yeah.
Right, and it was just like, so yeah, of course. Like I just think like if you're hiring, I think most of the time, and you guys hire a lot more people at a higher level than even I do. You kind of know you're going to get maybe 85 to 90% of the boxes checked, and you're just going to go, well, those are the 10 we're coaching.
Yeah. Yep.
So
exactly.
take the swing, I guess, is what we're saying, right?
Yeah, and as leaders, I think you can recognize this. This is not a man-woman thing. This
Yeah,
happens
just
to
general.
men,
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
and there are more ambitious women that just go for it. But I think as a leader, right, know that generally speaking, that's what happens. And so encourage and coach your team members through that to take that leap and really stretch themselves. And they'll grow into the role and the opportunity over time.
For sure.
So I asked the tough questions over here.
Go for it.
I'm not going to name any names, but we were having a conversation about this, about women in the workplace and how men could, more equally treat women. And the lady we chatted with said that I don't have issues with the guys. I have more issues with the females trying to take me out than I do the men, because I guess at the top it starts thinning out, and then women are maybe jealous. I don't know. But is that something that you guys talk about in GGW, or is it like...
You guys take more bullets from each other, I guess, or what?
So I actually think that's an interesting topic to bring up.
Okay.
And it's
Yeah.
touchy.
Let's go
It's
there.
a sensitive one.
Yeah.
So
It is.
let's-
I'll be the
let's
one to
dive
take
in.
the bullet right here.
I think it's a
just
great
curious.
question.
We have to be weird if we want to make progress, right? So let's do it.
Yeah, I don't experience that myself. And GGW is all about women supporting women. I mean, that's really our mission. And then how can we create an environment where we invite allies into that process? But I don't have personal experience with that, but I'm sure it happens, right? There's, but I think we just have to change, right? This isn't a competition. This is about rising everybody up, right? And creating opportunities for everybody and supporting each other. And, I believe it. I believe women can have a reputation of getting catty and pulling each other down, but there's space for everybody. There's opportunity for everybody. So how can we help each other, on each of our journeys?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I've definitely heard those stories. Right. I haven't had a lot of personal experience with that. I've been very fortunate in that regard. And I think one of the things that GGW is really focused on and trying to make sure is that we are committed to supporting one another. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nothing that we do works if we're not supportive of one another.
Yeah.
And cheerleading each other. And it's something I've started to talk about a little bit at the beginning of each of our board meetings. We've got to make sure we communicate. We're all rowing in the same direction, supporting one another. And that's how all of this works. And that's, something that if they're, look, we're all humans, and it's natural that we're not all going to agree. And again, if you're in the right room, it's not a bunch of people just yesing each other. Mm-hmm. It's people challenging each other. And if you can do that in a space that's supportive, I think that's where the magic happens in terms of, business or any goal you're trying to accomplish, where you're in a room where people are not afraid to challenge one another in a healthy, respectful way that's
the
still
best team you could have,
supportive of each other. And so I think that's, I think that does happen. And you hear those anecdotes, and that's a scenario that probably bums me out the most, because if we're not supporting each other, we're doing something so very wrong.
I think that, that happens to males as well. It's just a subject that we're going down the rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
Let's do it.
that was well answered. And yeah.
All right, so
Put you on the hot seat now.
The hot seat,
Yeah.
I'll hot seat them. So we play past the hot seat.
Hot potato.
Well, we can talk about this, right? And I think the message is really well received, I think, or understood, like for me, where you say, look, you can't just be an echo chamber. You can't just say like, hey, I'll just pick on the white guys. You 7 white guys are going to solve the problem. You're just not. We're just not, because you're going to go, well, no one in there can relate to what it's like to be a woman.
Right.
In that scenario, no one relates to what it's like to be a person of color, right? So there's perspective that you lose, right?
Yeah.
And then I challenge you guys and I said, well, wait a minute, you're trying to solve all the world's problems, but your board's all women. So is that not its own echo chamber the other way? Not saying I want to invade the board with all these guys, but like, how are you then sourcing the perspective? So maybe it's not a board seat. Maybe that's the wrong solution, but are you bringing in other executives going, hey guys, we're thinking about this type of thing. How would that be received the other way? Because I feel like the only way we're going to solve it is together.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we kind of do that and kind of make sure no one's in an echo chamber?
Wow, you really did put the hot seat on.
They knew it was coming, I think, a little
Okay,
bit.
good.
He gave us a warning.
I was about to leave.
I think it's a great call out, and don't ever hesitate to call us out on
Sure.
what we're talking about, because that's a healthy conversation to have. I'll let Cassie address kind of the board level piece, but there is programming that men can get involved in GGW. So I'm just going to do a little plug here. We have our Lean In virtual networking event coming up at the end of March. And last year when we held this programming, we actually had several men participate. From executive leaders to line level employees. So there's definitely opportunities, and we need that and we welcome that, because we have to have men as part of the conversation. Sure. It's a great way to raise their awareness, get involved in the conversation so that they can be better allies for women in gaming. And that's just such an important part of the whole formula. So yes, more men getting involved in really being part of the conversation and supporting the initiative I think is great.
Yeah, and building on that, we've had the conversation around board seats, and we're actually launching and sort of preparing to get our advisory board going. And that's another avenue that we're sort of thinking about.
Sure.
Maybe that's the right place to get some of our key male allies involved, because it can't be an echo chamber. We have to be open to the feedback from everybody. And I think one cool example of that is a couple years ago, we were getting some feedback that said, this is a bunch of white female executives, just creating programming tailored to white female executives.
Interesting.
Well, that loses sight of, again, if we're an organization built on trying to foster diversity, we're missing the mark. And so now we've created a board committee that is focused on DE&I within our own organization. And I'll be honest, when the idea first came up, I thought, well, we're a charitable organization focused on diversity. Do we need a whole committee on that? Yeah. And then, my eyes were open. I was like,
maybe we do.
Cassie, this is a good example of you not paying attention to diversity. That's not your experience. And so, we're very open to feedback as an organization. And we welcome that kind of feedback. So I think when it comes to male allies or anything else that we're sort of maybe missing the mark on, I think we're very open to, as an organization, making sure we're continuing to grow and mature and address the issues overall, because I think the industry is paying a lot more attention to these issues and realizing, okay, so first it was, well, as an industry, we're lagging behind from a female executive perspective. Sure. And now it's like, well, we're lagging behind in some other regards as well, and we all need to be paying attention to that. And so we as an organization focused on the industry that we all love need to sort of work on these issues to make sure that we're doing our part to advance the industry overall. Yeah. And so those are some good examples, and it's very much something that is a topic of discussion and something we're going to be addressing.
Yeah. And I think the key point there is you have to work at it, right? Like just hoping that it's going to change.
Hope is not a plan, right?
Hope is not a strategy. So you do have to be intentional and put some effort behind it and work at it, right? And I think if all of us did that with intention, we'll be in a very different place, 5 years from now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So how many total members right now are
Global Gaming?
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't even put it in the
Jeez.
I didn't know that would be the. This is great. Okay, it's a lot.
Where am I present? It is a lot. We have actually we've got our membership database right now, and at the moment we're a free membership organization.
Yeah.
So the numbers are anybody who's given us their information wants to be part of our database. It's well over 10,000, and
oh, wow.
I should have those figures a little more nailed down.
North of 10,000 is enough for me.
That's pretty good. And I think that's an important point. It's free to join because we believe, everyone should have the opportunity to access development and learning opportunities to network and grow your network. So
when they join, so if somebody joins, it's free to join. I'm going to ggw.com. Is that a fair?
Globalgamingwomen.org.
Globalgamingwomen.org. So if we go to the website and we say, I'm going to sign up, what does that now enable folks to do? So they can have, it sounds like training access, maybe invites to these networking events.
That's right.
What else is they kind of benefit from?
So one of the keys is just getting notifications when we've got events coming up and what our offerings are. And there's slightly different participation requirements for different programming. So we've got online content, virtual masterclass, and Trailblazers are ongoing programs that we offer that you can be anywhere in the world and participate in. You get a Zoom link, you've got to pre-sign up, but you can do it from the comfort of home, the beach, or coffee shop,
I've watched
wherever.
All of the Trailblazers. Those are good series.
They are. They're fantastic. And then we have some in-person content as well. We've got what we call our pyramid courses, which are based on leadership development at each level. So they're tailored to the level that you're at, from a supervisor, managerial role, all the way up to VP and above type levels.
Right.
And those you actually apply for, and you put together some information about why you want to be involved, how long you've been in gaming, those kinds of things, because those groups are typically, their classes under 30, they're a couple of days, they're in person.
It's a bigger commitment.
It's a bigger commitment, and it's a little more intensive in terms of the content that we're trying to help people with, and it's very focused on just professional development in general. And then there's, things like the Southern Gaming Lunch and the virtual Lean In and just membership type events that we have around other industry conferences or things like that, which are just ways for people to get familiar with our organization and do some valuable networking, which can be hugely impactful. You never know who you're going to meet that's going to make a big difference for you in your career or life. Yeah.
And when we talk about things like mentors and sponsors and allies, I think our events are a great opportunity for men and women to find those people, right, that they something about them they admire, that they connect with, and could potentially reach out and create a mentoring relationship. So I think encouraging women to network and get more involved is really important, because again, I think it's one of those things that it might not come as naturally to us as men, perhaps, but really putting yourself out there and growing your network, and you'll get exposure to fantastic leaders in the industry.
Yeah, no question. You had you mentioned earlier about sponsorship, mentorship, and one thing that I can tell you is I've probably always said yes if someone asked me, right? Because on the receiving end, it's not so bad, but I don't know. Sometimes you see some of these high-powered people, and you go, man, Cassie's not gonna go to coffee with me. I'm just a mid-level lawyer trying to work my way up to what she's doing, right, in the high levels. And it's like, is there any advice for how to approach somebody to ask? Because I'm assuming, like, in your role now, you're towards the top of the chart versus kind of the bottom. You're the mentor now, right? I mean, I'm not saying you can't learn things. I'm sure there's other people that you chat with, but more people listen to this probably go, I would love to learn from Cassie or Siobhan or their peers, right? Whoever else in that chart. Is there some? But it's intimidating. Like, is there anything that has worked well for you when you were seeking mentorship early, or that you've noticed people that resonated with you as you're coaching them? How do people start that conversation, I guess?
Yeah. first like to say I have mentors.
Yeah.
So I don't think it ever ends, right?
Got it.
You don't
Okay.
reach a level where you're like,
right.
yeah, I'm good. Nothing
And I
else
got
to
it.
learn here.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's, we should be learning for the rest of our careers and beyond. So the way I got connected with my mentors is I had a facilitator. I went and spoke to other leaders in our business, and they suggested a couple women in the business and connected me with them.
Nice.
And it's fantastic, and I'm so grateful for that relationship and their guidance. So you could do it that way. Again, it comes back to just ask. What's the
right.
worst you're going to say?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm busy.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, Naseem reached out to us on LinkedIn. She's a grad student at UNLV. Just said, "Hey,
senior
I would
PhD,
love to come on your pod." We're like, "Come on over!" And then we did a podcast. It was awesome.
Yeah.
We talked about robots, aliens. It was wild. Like,
Yeah.
she reached out.
Well,
I mean,
she's a
that's
great
just an
example of
example, yeah.
how, like, when you take the chance, you're probably
Yeah.
going to hit the target.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just take the chance, right?
Yeah.
And she had no fear, and that she's a great girl. But listening to you, what I'm hearing is right there,
Yeah.
you talk about allyships. If you're a guy listening or anybody listening, you go, well, that middle facilitator automatically becomes a role. You go, oh, you can fill that role.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
like, I may not be able to teach the next Cassie, and I have to pick on you because you're next to me, how to be Cassie, but I know Cassie and I know Ashley or whatever her name's gonna be. Why don't I just put those two together?
Yeah.
And then there you go. Then you've done your part to kind of help the next thing,
Mentoring
right? So,
matchmaker.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah, everybody's doing it. Well, that's what I mean, because you're never going to be the one that knows all of it. But if you know somebody that's better suited, that's a good way to help out as
Right.
well. So
And the great thing about our industry is the relationships that we have, right? And,
for sure.
And we can be those connectors and those facilitators.
yeah, and that's another thing I didn't even think about. Like maybe if somebody reaches out to one of these two and they're like, I want to, but I can't, but who'd be good, right? So maybe it's
Right.
like, again, if you're afraid to take the shot, like sometimes the worst thing that happens is you get redirected, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe,
Exactly.
or maybe you just go, I don't know if I can coach you. It doesn't really suit my area, but this person would be better. Pass the torch a little bit, right? So
You can get as many no's as you want, but you can also get yeses in between.
And I think the no's are really rare.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when people,
Well, that's the point,
I
yeah.
know when people reach out to me and want to have coffee and have a question, it's a law student
Yeah.
or someone new to the industry or whatever it is. Every single time I'm like, oh, they want to hear what I have to say. Like, I'm so excited that someone, and I'm like, it feels good, right?
Yeah.
It's a little ego boost or confidence boost, and it feels great. And I think people forget that. I mean, it doesn't matter. We think about every point you were at your career. You didn't, to Siobhan's point, we all have so much to learn still.
Oh, yeah.
But you forget that there's somebody who's wants to be you in 5 years. And that's kind of a cool thing to remind
That is
yourself of.
interesting,
Like,
right?
okay, look at where I am today. This is awesome. I have something to share with somebody.
Yeah. I think so many leaders too have grown up in this industry, and we have so many examples of people that helped us.
Yeah.
And I would be shocked if anyone said no or turned somebody down, because we want to pay that forward and help the next generation of leaders rise up.
well, that's it. I mean, everybody in their chair didn't get there alone. Right. Somebody had to hire you. Somebody had to maybe go to bat, especially if you're towards the top. Like it's very, I don't want to say political, but it's very interesting how some of those decisions get made. Like you don't get to be the chief of something on a single vote.
No.
Right.
It's usually 10 people that go, yeah, well, Siobhan, she's the one. Let's make her the one. It's like, wow. Like, there's a lot of help there. A lot of people that had to weigh in. Right. So yeah, paying it forward is the only thing to do. Because if you're not, well, who said it? Somebody said, I don't know. The internet attributes quotes to random people. But basically somebody said like, hey, it's your job when you make it to the top, send the elevator back down, buddy. Like, don't just keep it for yourself. Like, help somebody else get up. And
There you go. Mike said it now.
Yeah.
That's me.
The internet.
Kiski quote, put it on the
Full of
board.
wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my meme searches. That's what I'm working on.
So we're getting kind of close to the end here, and it is a gambling podcast. And I want to know if you guys gamble.
Gamblers, are we?
I do. I'm not an
Global
avid.
gaming. Let's talk.
Not avidly,
Okay.
but I definitely do.
Do you have
So,
a fun gambling story? You can.
Yeah, if you're going out, what would you play? You're out with your friends. Like, what would?
Oh, fun gambling story. I tend to like license themes. I think,
Okay.
I would be that entertainment player, not that,
Yeah.
hardcore gambler. the classic Wizard of Oz has always been my favorite.
Okay.
Like
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
joined the industry, like that was kind of, very early on the big product. And like my first experience sitting down at a slot machine, that's the game I played.
Okay.
And so that's just the one for me.
Were you a fan of the movies as a kid? Is that kind of just what drew you in? Or
No, it was just like the original was just
Yeah.
a great game. And so I just had a great experience. And then my affinity for that brand just kind of grew from there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you like the entertainment style
Yes,
games.
yeah.
I like that.
hanging. Fun fact, I played the Cowardly Lion in the 4th grade play, Wizard of Oz.
Did you
my
really?
gosh.
Wow.
I can see that.
Great answer. Yeah, thank
Totally
you.
see
Yeah.
that.
Wait, were you the bear?
I was the lion, buddy.
Lion.
Oh, that makes sense.
Cowardly
There's
Lion.
no bear, I don't think, is there?
Could be
There's
in
no
the
bear.
forest.
And Landon's version.
We
of
weren't
it.
including the bear. He was out in the forest like, hey guys, I'm supposed to be in the
It's like, I
film.
thought I was going to frolic.
He got
around.
cut. It's
Yeah,
what
he
I'm
got
gonna
cut.
go
He
for,
got
yeah.
cut.
Lions and tigers and bears. I think that's what you're thinking of.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
So that's what it was. But
you
so
go.
anyway, fun time. Are you even allowed to gamble? Is it in your role?
Well, so I'm not much of a
So many
gambler.
handcuffs, I'm sure.
I moved to Vegas for law school.
Okay.
Yeah.
UNLV?
And yes,
Hey, go
went
Rebs,
to UNLV.
perfect.
That's right.
yeah.
Boyd School of Law.
Yes. Shout them out.
So I was not a gambler before that. When I would walk through a casino floor, I'm like, I want to play craps because those people seem like they're having the most fun. It was
Yeah.
social
Yeah.
and you could talk. I don't like the games where it's so intense and people can't. I have a hard time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm out to be social. I
Right.
want to play whatever
Heck yeah.
game you're allowed to be social in. But when I was a kid, my grandparents in their basement, I grew up in North Dakota, and in their basement they had an antique old slot machine. So
Yeah.
on the holidays, all the kids would go down there and we'd get the buckets of
Double
nickels.
nickels, yeah,
And we'd lose them all inevitably every time. And they'd be like, open up the back so we can get them out. And my dad would be like, that's not how gambling works. I had no idea. I mean, I lived in North Dakota. I had no
Sure.
idea I'd be working in this industry. But he was like,
so funny.
you should understand someday that you don't just get to open the back of the machine and
Yeah.
keep playing.
If you're rolling the forebears, they're not giving it back.
Yeah,
exactly.
noted. Maybe that's why I
That's
don't play
funny.
slots
Yeah,
today.
no
I don't
worries.
know.
That's
Good job, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks
You
for
did
that
a great
lesson.
job.
Keep
yeah.
them dialed in. Yeah, it's always interesting. Like I feel like, but see, part of it is you had that in your house, right? So I
Yeah.
always feel like growing up in Vegas, I never was worried about irresponsible gaming,
Right.
Because I always saw it done responsibly. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, you take your $100, you lose, okay, we just
Yep.
move on. Like,
Yep.
I feel like if you're shielded from it and then you get it, it's like those kids in college that just drink all the beers. You're like, oh, like, somebody needs to talk to you.
You've
right?
never had a beer before.
Gotta do it better, right? And so I think
Yep.
that's where it's interesting. But yeah, cool. Well, we appreciate you guys, you ladies. Sorry, probably one of the words we can change is like one
do
of the
that
things
too.
we
I
can
do
do
that
is
too.
just
We
change
say
that.
guys,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm like, man, I'm all worried about it. So we appreciate ladies coming by, and we always ask on the show, like, we don't know everybody that's interesting and fun. Like we call it the MaxBet Challenge. It's a little bit of a call out. So who would you like to see us interview in a future episode, or who do you think would be good for coming in and joining the hot seat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put forth Alex Dixon. I don't know him personally,
I know him,
but
yeah.
I'm just super impressed by him. I've seen him moderate a couple industry panels, and
Yeah.
I think he's just a really impressive guy, and I
Alex
think
is-
he'd make a great guest on
He's
your
a
show.
stud. So Alex is the kind of guy that I feel like, I don't know if he aspires to this, but
Yeah.
if you told me that in 5 years he was the governor of Nevada or the senator on our behalf, like,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that totally checks.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah, could
exactly
totally
how
see that.
like, smart and professional he is. So I'm like, yeah, I would vote for him, right? So I'd love to interview him. So yeah, that'd be good. I'll reach out to him.
Amen.
He's a stud. Plus, he, like I was laughing earlier, he's a running back. So running back and lineman, special connection
There
there.
you go.
So
Yeah.
all good. Can I put you on for one too?
Yeah.
Get a two for today?
Yeah, so I'm going to suggest Lauren Bates.
Oh, nice.
So
Dun, dun,
Lauren is
dun.
awesome, a character, a go-getter. I actually, she's an example of someone I just have met through Global Gaming Women.
Yeah.
She's on our board as well.
Awesome.
And over the last year have become really good personal friends with her. We'd be having GGW meetings, and then one day we were going to meet at coffee. I live in the same side of town as she does, and
nice.
she was like, I'm coming over for a glass of wine. I was like, okay, I'll see you in 10 minutes.
That's awesome.
That's
And
so
and now
good.
she's a good friend and sounding board and a good example of informal sort of
Yeah.
kind of a mentorship situation in a very informal way.
That's
So
awesome.
She'd be
Well,
great.
Lauren's
She's
good.
yeah.
She'll have
she'd
some
be
good
great.
stories, I bet.
Yeah.
She's the only person ever known
Oh,
to beat
I can't-
you in
yeah.
sales.
I'll take the
challenge.
beat. Look, I was always trying to
call
keep
it
up
like
with
it is,
her.
yeah.
He's gonna get his
She,
good questions right, his hard ones ready for her.
Tripping her
Ask
up.
her about the membership number.
I've really got her now.
Get the trivia stuff. Oh, this has been fun. So I guess as a closing message, if you're out there, take the shot.
Yeah.
Just take the shot. And if you're
the
worried
shot.
about it, if you want people to help you, globalgamingwomen.org, they're around. They'll
And if you're given a hand, take the hand.
Take the hand, yes.
these are the
Absolutely.
fortune cookies to go forth.
All the fortune cookies.
Well, ladies, thank you very much. It's been fun.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thanks for
so
having
much.
us.
Absolutely.